hopefully they'll finish up with Musaf and things like that. Okay. Year of Learning by Paula and Bob Bromberg in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. In memory of Malcolm Mann, former member, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Cheryl Schur, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva. Marcia Fetterbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Fetterbush, Uriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon. Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edel Bas Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, and Irving and Pearl Kaplan. The friends of Avi Gitler, Avraham Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gitler, Charna Bas Yeshaya. Friends of Toby Peres, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov. Friends of Malka Levy, Malka bat Yosef. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi. Now we have a month of learning. Memory by B. Pizer, in memory of her father, Yischadov ben Shmuel, by Mordechai and Miriam Burr, in memory of his mother, Manya Bas Rav Shimon Halevi, and Cheryl Schur, in honor of those who joined my first series of epistemology of tefillah classes, and to the second series coming soon. We have a week of learning by Michael and Judith Poretsky, in memory of his mother, Rachel Bas Avram, by Jack Gilman, in memory of his brother, Zev Yosef ben Yitzchak, by Sharon and Michael Glass, in memory of her mother, Chaya Bas Avram Baruch, by Susan and Ron Podolsky, in memory of her mother, Chaya Bas Avram Dov. We have a day of learning today, the 12th, right? Being sponsored by Sid Peres, in memory of his father-in-law, Yisrael Dov ben Yitzchak Yaakov. And that is it. May the Neshamas have an Aliyah, Kranker Afia, Velti Yashir, Shem Atzliah, and L'chol B'nai Yisrael, a good gebenched yar.
Amen.
Okay.
Looks great.
Okay, I see Bob is on.
Morning.
Good morning. Was Erwin in show this morning?
Yes, he was.
Okay, so hopefully he'll get on momentarily. What about Zev? Didn't see Zev there.
He's still winding his tefillin.
Yeah,
Did
no,
not
no.
spot.
He's got self-winding.
We got to get him a present.
Yeah. Okay, Erwin, good. Harvey, we're going to get started, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're not gonna finish all of Shkalim today. We'll go pretty much close to near the end, and so we can leave a little bit for the Siyum for tomorrow. Okay, I probably should have scheduled the Siyum for today, but given a few things, that was not in the cards, so to speak. Okay, we're on Kaf Aleph Amud Beis, towards the very bottom of the Amud, Halacha Gimel, right? Remember we had talked about items being lost, okay? Or the question of items being tameh, and therefore its implications. And so the this last Mishnah continues that if you want to say motif, okay, particularly in regards to Tuma and Tara. So the Mishnah starts, Basar Kadshe Kadshe. Okay, so we're talking about most holy objects, offerings. Shidnitma bein ba'av hatuma, bein bevlad hatuma. Regardless of it, if it became tamei from a, let's say, second degree tuma or a first degree tuma. Okay? In either case, bein bifnim, bein bachutz, says the Mishnah. Regardless if it occurred within the area of the Beis Hamikdash, the courtyard, or outside. Beit Shammai Omrim, Hakol Yisaref Bifnim. Okay, so far Beit Shammai says all of those most holy offerings need to be burnt within the temple precinct, right? Chutz mishenitma ba'av hatuma b'chutz, with the exception, okay, of something that was rendered tamei by a first degree or direct degree tuma, where it occurred outside. Now, machloket is going to be presented. Beit Hillel Omrim, says Beit Hillel now. Hakol Yisaref B'chutz. Beit Hillel totally disagrees, it would appear, and saying all these Kodshe Kadoshim that become Tamei should be burnt outside of the temple of the Azara. Chutz mishen nitma bevlad hatuma bifnim, with the exception of something that was rendered Tamei by a second level item, and it occurred in the temple precinct itself. So right now, between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, okay, can we come up with any kind of a criteria, right? It would seem that perhaps, okay, we might say that is it the level of the Kodshim? No, that doesn't matter. Is it the level of the what the Tuma is? Well, that might be the criteria that directs us. Okay, because one says it was Tamei in a first level, the other says Tamei with second level. So maybe the level of Tamei, of Tuma, of causing Tuma, is what dictates where it gets burnt. Okay, so let's see if that supposition might work. We go on now to Kafbet Amud Aleph. Rabbi Eliezer, a third participant in this machloket now, Shenitma ba'av hatuma, that if the Kodshe Kadoshim became tamei with contact with a av tuma, first level tuma, bein bifnim, bein bachutz, yisaref bachutz, regardless if it occurred inside the temple precinct or outside, okay, it does get burnt outside. So it could be that Rabbi Eliezer rejects both Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, okay, by saying that it's not, okay, where it becomes tamei.
But what's the level?
Okay, so that the fact is that it's based on the level.
Level.
Shenitma bevlad hatuma, okay, if it becomes tamei through a second level tuma, bein bachutz, bein bifnim, yisaref bifnim. Okay, whether, again, second level tuma, whether inside or outside, okay, it's burnt inside, within the precinct. So his view is, okay, different from the argument of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Namely, it depends on the criteria is the level of tumah that dictates where it gets burnt. A fourth participant, Rabbi Akiva Omer, says Rabbi Akiva, Makom tumato, sham sreifato. The place where it became tameh, that's where it gets burnt. Okay? So if you're using Art Scroll 22A1, note number 2, Art Scroll provided us with a diagram showing all 4 positions, okay? And okay, spelling it out for us in more detail. Now, we see that an attempt to explain the machloket is presented to us by Bar Kapara. Bar Kapara Amar, Av Hatuma, Devar Torah. He says that something that becomes Tomei through an Av Hatuma is biblical law. Vlad Hatuma Medivrehem. Something that became Tomei through a Vlad Hatuma, second level, is only the Rabbanan. That's his view. And that's how he explains this machloket. That's why we could see that they would have different locations. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, however, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Bar Kapara and explains, Bein zeh, devar Torah. He disagrees that regardless of how it became Tameh, D'oraita, it's still Tameh. V'kasha de Rabbi Yochanan al de Beit Shammai. And therefore, there's a problem that Rabbi Yochanan has with Beit Shammai's view. The Beit Shammai Omrim, that Beit Shammai says, Hakol Yisaref Bifnim, Chutz Mishanitma, Ba'av Hatuma Bachutz. That's what Beit Shammai said. And Rabbi Yochanan would challenge them and say, Ma bein Av Hatuma Bachutz, Ma bein Vlad Hatuma Bachutz. What difference does it make, okay, in terms of it becoming Tameh outside? Either way, I hold the Torah says that it's a Tameh, and therefore whether it's a first or second level Tameh, level of Tuma is not the criteria. Zev Zelo. This one and this one, no. Devar Torahu. That isn't it a implication that it's a Torah law that they both become Tameh. And so Rabbi Yochanan continues his argument. Va'afilu al debate halal, lo maksha. Okay. He doesn't actually say that. The Gemara raises the question. If that's the case, if the issue is not based on criteria of kind of tumor, okay, is the criteria based on the location, then Rabbi Yochanan should also have likewise a problem with Beit Hillel's position.
Right.
Okay? The Beit Hillel Amar HaKol Yisaref Bachutz Chutz Mimasha Nitma Bevlad Hatuma Bifnim. Because Beit Hillel said, again, that everything is burnt outside except something that becomes Tameh with a second level Tuma inside. And we could ask the same question that Rabbi Yochanan challenged Beit Shammai to Beit Hillel. Ma bein Vlad Hatuma Bifnim, ma bein Av Hatuma Bifnim. What difference does it make how it became Tameh? They both were Tameh inside. Zev v'zeh lo davar Torahu. This one and this one, aren't they both, again, clear Torah mandated requirements? So the Gemara tells us, V'lo havu ba Rabbanan, ela al davar kapara, al davar kapara. Okay, that we're saying here again that in this particular case, right, we might say that when the rabbis were examining this machloket, they only examined it within the context of Bar Kapara's explanation, okay, which differentiated between one first level of Tuma of Doraita and second level Dorabana. Vakashya de Bar Kapara al the Beit Shammai. And therefore, in that context, we also have a problem with Bar Kapara's explanation regarding Beit Shammai. The Beit Shammai omrim, hakol yisaref bifnim, chutz mishenitma ba'av hatuma b'chutz. Okay, that there too. And regarding Bar Kapara's explanation, the Gemara says we could ask, ma bein av hatuma, bein b'chutz, bein b'fnim. Okay, that being the case, what difference is there? Zeh v'zeh, lo, right? Devar Torah. Okay, aren't they again both situation of a Devar Torah? Okay, and therefore, Bagin, the Rabbi Akiva, Amar Makom Tumato, Sham Tahe Sreifato. Okay, so in other words, if the impurity is, Rabbi Akiva's argument could be that the place where it becomes tameh, that's the place it's burned, implying that if it's impure by Torah, okay, we can agree. If by the rabbis, we would disagree with Rabbi Akiva. Okay. Va'afilu al de Beit Hillel lo makashya, and therefore, doesn't this also then disagree with the view of Beit Hillel? The Beit Hillel Amar Hakol Yisaref Bachutz Chutz Mishenitma Bevlad Hatuma Bifnim. And we could ask, as the Gemara does, Ma Bein Vlad Hatuma Bein Bifnim Bein Bachutz Zeh v'zeh Lo Medivreim. Again, so we could ask again the same question based on Bar Kapara's view. If you're saying Vlad Tuma is only the Rabbanan, the implication being, therefore, that why say that they're both okay burnt in the same, with one only than one exception. Begin the Rabbi Shimon Amar Ma'achlo Umashko Shomatzora Mishtalchin Chutz L'Shalosh Machano. That theoretically Rabbi Akiva could argue, as does Rabbi Shimon, okay, that we have I'm not sure if I was exactly call it a pasuk, but we have at least a discussion of the fact that when it came to a Matzorah, okay, food, their drink, etc., was outside of all three camps, right? Remember, in the Mishkan, you had the Mishkan in the middle, you had the, right, with the Kohanim, then you had the camp of the Levi, then the camp of the rest of the people, and the Matzorah was outside. So Rabbi Akiva could therefore point to that argument and say, therefore, that's why items should be burnt if they're tameh outside, okay, and not inside. Okay, so that finishes that particular item, that discussion. Since we talked about Kodesh Kedoshim there, okay, becoming tameh, it's now going to continue with another halacha, a new topic, okay, dealing with the parts of the offerings, okay? And here we're going to see, again, some discussion that also indicates differences of opinion. Halacha Dalet, okay, as follows. Matnit in our Mishnah tells us as follows. Evarei hatamid nitnin mechatzi keves ulamata. Okay, that the tamid offerings, let's call it specific parts, limbs that were to be brought for the daily tamid. Okay, before they were put on the mizbeach, they were put on a certain location on the ramp, namely the lower half of the ramp, okay, the ma'arav, on the western side. Okay? Notice, by the way, on 22A3, Art Scroll doesn't have a drawing, but it does have a somewhat of a, if you're using that, okay, a somewhat long note. Okay. Shel Musafim, if we're talking about the Avarim, those body parts, limbs that belong to the additional offerings, right, which could have been brought like today on Rosh Chodesh or on a Shabbos, right? Namely, Mishal Musafim, Nitnin Mechatzi Keves Ulamata B'Mizrach. Okay, they were brought right on the, again, the lower half of the ramp on the eastern side. Shel Roshei Chodeshim, specifically today, Nitnin Al Karkuv HaMizbeach. They were put on what we'll call the karkuv for the moment, the edge, or the, let's also we could describe it as a perimeter, okay, of the mizbeach. Now, it would have been helpful were we to have a diagram now of the mizbeach, okay, where it would actually show us where the karkuv is. But we're going to see that the Gemara itself is going, and Meforshim have a difference of opinion. Okay, so what happens? Milamalim. Okay, so we say that these Rosh Chodesh offerings were placed on top of the karkuv of the Mizbeach. Continuing. Hashkalim v'habikurim. Okay, the new shekels that were brought then for this time of the year, right, for the offering, for to be put into the lishka, the habikurim, okay, and here we're saying the first fruits, okay, offerings, einam nohagin ele b'fnei habayit. They were not to be brought or carried out except in the time of the temple. Aval ma'asar dagan. Okay. But if we're talking again about other kinds of grain offerings, uma'asar behemah, or the tithing of animals, ubechorot, or the issues of firstborn offerings. Okay. Nohagim bein b'fnei habayit, bein shelo b'fnei habayit. They can be carried out, okay, whether or not the temple is in existence. Now, what happens if, let's say, even though we see that the Mishnah said new shkalim and the bikurim would not necessarily be brought unless the temple is in existence, and someone consecrated those items nevertheless, okay? Hamakdish shkalim ubikurim, harei kodesh. Okay? They still, nevertheless, if one did designate them, even in the time when there's no Beis Hamikdash, they are considered consecrated, holy, and cannot be misused. Rabbi Shimon Omer, HaOmer Bikurim Kodesh, Einan Kodesh. Rabbi Shimon, however, disagrees and says in regards to the Bikurim, we say that those are not considered Kodesh, right? That they do not become consecrated. Now, notice what the very first question in the Gemara is. Ezehu karkuv hamizbeach. What do we mean when we say the karkuv of the mizbeach?
Right.
Okay, that's why I said a picture would have been helpful. Ama ben keren la keren. This starts off the Gemara. That it's let's call it a narrow 1 amma width border that went around the top of the mizbeach, okay, leading from which Kohanim could go from one corner or one horn to another corner. Okay. Makom hiluch raglei Kohanim. It was the place then where the Kohanim could walk. Musfei Shabbat, Musfei Rosh Chodesh. A new topic. Let's say we referred earlier to additional offerings in our mission, right? We said Musfin were put on the lower eastern side of the Mizbeach, of the ramp, but the Rosh Chodesh were put on the Karkur. So let's say you have a situation where you have Shabbos offerings and Rosh Chodesh offerings the same time, same day. Okay. Okay. Musvei Shabbat, Musvei Rosh Chodesh, Mikodem. Okay. Which should take precedence. Rabbi Yirmiyah Savar Meimar. Rabbi Yirmiyah thought to say as follows. Musvei Shabbat, Musvei Rosh Chodesh. That in that example, Musvei Rosh Chodesh could mean. Okay. Right? That the additional offerings of the Rosh Chodesh should take precedence. Chayle, the Rabbi Yirmiyah Minhada, that his proof was based on something that a Rabbi Yirmiyah had said here, namely, in the temple, okay, in the Beis Mikdash, when it came time for the Levi'im to sing appropriate Tehillim, Shiro Shel Shabbat, the Shiro Shel Rosh Chodesh, the song of Shabbos, or the psalm of Shabbos, the song or psalm of Rosh Chodesh, Shiro Shel Rosh Chodesh Kodem, that the one that came first was the Rosh Chodesh psalm or song. Okay. By the way, okay, we know that what happens today, we're going to come back to that in just a second when we get to is not the case.
Right.
Okay? But we'll see why in a moment. Amar Rabbi Yosef, says Rabbi Yosef, Shniyahi. He says that's different. What order the Levi'im sang. Tman, there in that example, the Amar Rabbi Chia b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Chia said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kadei lefarsimo ulahodia shehu Rosh Chodesh. The only reason that they sang at first was to remind people and inform them that today was also Rosh Chodesh. So the Gemara asks, Ketzad haya oseh, so what did they do? Shochet musfei Shabbat, they would slaughter the additional Musaf offering first. V'omer lehen shiro shel Rosh Chodesh. And while that was being done, the Levi'im would sing the psalm of Rosh Chodesh. Bram, however, hacha musvei Shabbat umusvei Rosh Chodesh, musvei Shabbat could mean. But here, when they were brought together, okay, when they both needed, the Musaf additional offerings of Shabbat would take precedence. Al Shem, Kol Hatadir, Mechavero, Kodem et Chavero. That which is more frequent than its neighbor takes precedent over its neighbor. Okay? And so that's why basically today, like today too, if we have a choice between saying the Psalm of the day and the Psalm for Rosh Chodesh, Psalm of the day comes first, Psalm Rosh Chodesh comes afterwards. Okay, let's go on. Shkalim ubikurim v'chulei. Okay, we talked that the Mishnah said that these new shkalim and these bikurim, first fruits, would not be brought during the time when the temple, the bishop, did not exist. But if somebody did consecrate them, nevertheless, okay, they would be considered, right, consecrated. So what happens? Hashkalim kadsho, says the Gemara. But didn't we just say that they would be considered consecrated? Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda the Amora, citing in the name of Rabbi Shimon the Tana, okay, he tells us as follows. Okay. Bein elu uvein elu, lo kadsho, that whether it's this one or that one, they don't become consecrated. Tani, and we have a Braita that tells us as follows, right? Bisman hazeh, in other words, at this time when the temple didn't exist, okay? Sarich lahavi kino revi'it kesef, that a person who is converting, okay, besides having to go through certain rituals, we know, Brit Milah for a man and mikvah, or just for a woman a mikvah, they were also required to bring a korban. Okay, so what do they do then during the time when there is no Beis Hamikdash? Okay, that kino, okay, that korban that they would have brought, okay, what do they do with it, right? So they have to bring what? Revi'it kesef. They have to bring a silver dinar for the bird pair that they would have brought as their offering. Amar Rabbi Shimon, bitla Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, mepnei hatikala. He claims, right? Rabbi Shimon in the name of that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did away with that requirement because it would create a tikala, a problem, a stumbling block. So the Gemara asks, Mahu mipnei tikala, what do we mean? A stumbling block, a problem? Kahada datani, okay? Like in this case, as we teach, the Braita teaches us. Ein makdishin velo ma'arichim velo machrimin velo magbehin trumot umasrot bisman hazeh. Okay? That we don't consecrate, we don't make values, we don't, let's say, designate something, sanctity. We don't, any of these activities are not done, okay, when there is no Beis Hamikdash regarding Trumot umasrot, okay, regarding all of these items. No erech vows, no consecration, no cherem, nothing in this time. Ve'im hikdish, and if one did consecrate it, or a harich, or made an erech vow, a vow promising to give something to the Beis Hamikdash equal in value to a person, let's say, okay? Or hechrim, or they promised something to the Beis Hamikdash regarding the value of an object, okay, dedicating that object. Or higbia, okay, or they, again, would so designate it, right? Hakasot tisoref, okay, clothing, if that was the item that was designated, was to be burnt. Excuse me. Habehema te'aker, and the animal should be uprooted. In other words, we'll clarify that in a second. Okay. Ketzad, how is that to be done? You take the animal and you put it in some place. Noel bifaneha hadelet vehi meta me'aleha. Okay, you put the animal in a stall, you lock, close,
Get up.
board up the stall, don't give the animal any food, and it dies on its own by starvation.
That's not Tzar B'Chaim.
That's not Tsar Balei Chaim, right? V'hamaot yelchu liyam hamelech, and the coins are then tossed into the Dead Sea. Now, having said this, and we said we use the example of the convert, okay, as an attempt to challenge the statement that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had done away with any of these things, okay, we find as follows. Avar v'hikdish. What happens if somebody nevertheless went ahead, opposed to, okay, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's ruling, and they still nevertheless consecrated the money or the object or things like etc. Min ma da'amar Rabbi Shimon bitla, right? It would seem from what Rabbi Shimon said, okay, that Rabbi Yochanan nullified it, okay? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, b'pnei hatikala, that he nullified it. And what was the tikala? Okay, the tikala, as we're going to point out in just a second, Hadda amra avar v'hikdish kadsho. But here, one else has said, right, that if he designated, it still is in a status of consecration. Okay. So what happens? Our concern, of course, is that if somebody nevertheless went ahead and consecrated the item, okay, and it is, and we hold like that statement that it is still consecrated, the result then is he's capable of me'ila, of committing me'ila, okay? So we're going to just go a little bit further. Rabbi Yuda, okay, another scholar, Antadoria, okay, Ba'ekume Rabbi Yossi, okay. He asked the following question before Rabbi Yossi, okay, in regards to this discussion. Hacha at Amar Kadsho, here you say that it's consecrated. Vahacha at Amar Lo Kadsho, and here elsewhere, okay, regarding the shekel, you said that it's not consecrated. Okay? So what happened is that Rabbi Yossi tries to suggest an answer. Amarle, he said to him, Tman l'chach ein makdishin l'chatchila. Okay. Therefore, he says, there, in the case of the shkalim, we don't designate it initially, in the first place. Lafi shemitzvah lahakriv mitruma chadasha. Why? Because it is a mitzvah to make it to pay for the korbanot, tamid and others from the new shkalim. Okay, veheach havelanu yishana. Okay, havyalat yishana. But this kind of shekel would be considered an old shekel. Okay, that's the problem. Vahacha, and here in this case, all right, the vis-a-vis money that we associated with the convert that he may have put aside, let's say accidentally, or even against the view of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, okay, for the bird pairs, Ma'id lach lemema. What can you say in that case? Right? Hayishanahi. Isn't that also considered, so to speak, old money? Okay. What's the situation? And therefore, shouldn't it be invalid? Legabe hekdeshot acherim v'kino shogir eino tzarich chadasha. Regarding the other designations, and particularly that of the bird pair that was required of the convert, we do not need new money. We're going to stop right there, okay? And that's where I will finish from there till the end at the seal, okay? And also tomorrow, we'll also start a little bit later, closer to 8:45, okay? Because again, it's Rosh Chodesh, okay? And we'll start nevertheless with a little bit of Yoma, and at the Siyum, okay, Rabbi Kranzler will give, I'm sure, a nice introduction to Yoma as well. Okay, everybody?
Okay.
And I believe that in the bulletin, online, in yesterday's education email, it gave the Zoom link for the seal. Okay, I'm pretty sure I looked at it yesterday, and I pretty sure saw it there. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. So
Very good. So,
do
so
that.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
nowadays, if someone out of error, out of ignorance, were to say that this is going to be designated to the Beis Hamikdash, do we have a concept of Me'ila nowadays at all, or just we disagree?
That's a good question. And I would think that there is still a concept there, because the question comes up, and I remember somebody discussing it. Okay, if let's say you decided, Bob, that today you're going to donate, I don't know, $50 to a particular charity.
Right.
Okay. And you actually take that $50 and you put it aside, or you
Right.
write the check and you put it aside because you weren't ready to mail it.
Right.
Can you use that money for other purposes? I was told, no, you
No,
cannot,
you can't. You cannot.
right?
Designated already. Uh-huh.
Because it's designated already, exactly. Okay.
Okay. Interesting. Well,
So the concept, okay, is still operative.
yep.
That's what I would
Okay. Very good.
say. Okay.
Thank you very much. And,
All right,
to be
everybody.
continued. Have a
Okay.
great day.
Take care,
Kodesh Tov.
everybody. Be
All
well.
right.
Good, so
Nice.
Okay.
leave.